Hello, as folks come in. Welcome to our March 2024 Advisory Committee for Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights for the City of Bangor. We'll begin tonight by going around the room and introducing ourselves to each other. And for those of the folks that are watching at home, my name is Katie Bryden. I'm the Vice Chair, and I'll be leading today's meeting in the absence of our Chair, Leanna Fellis.
My name's Evelyn Roscoe, and I'm the student representative for Bangor High.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Jim Taggart, Superintendent.
Hi there, I'm Dana Carver Byaller. Not a member of this committee, but asked to join and happily did. I'm the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Coordinator for the Bangor School Department.
Hi, I'm Melissa Buckles. I'm a member of this committee and also the site manager of the Refugee and Immigration Services Program with Catholic Charities.
Hi, I'm Catherine Robinson. I'm a member of this committee and I'm the Associate Director at the School of Nursing at UMaine.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Wiley. I'm a member of this committee and also a student at the University of Maine in their social work program, and I work at Acadia Hospital.
I'm Andre Chassé, also a member of the committee, and I'm the Retirement Benefits Manager at Northern Light Health.
I'm Debbie Laurie. I'm the city manager here for the city of Bangor.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So in order to kick tonight off, I want to start by getting approval of the February 27th meeting minutes. If everybody had a chance, any changes or updates that folks were able to see on the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve?
I'm looking to approve the minutes.
Second.
Great. No other questions? All righty, then we will move on with that approval. So our first item on the budget is our education, which we're thrilled to have the team from Bangor High School or Bangor School Department at large here with us to talk about their DEIB updates. So I'm happy to hand over the floor to whomever wants to kick it off.
Maybe if it's okay, Dana will give you an update on our three co-groups that made at our meeting. Three breakout groups, and they've done a lot of work. So if you want to give an overview, and then Principal Butler joined us tonight too, and he can go over the MIAS for you too, which I think will be good information.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've had a lot of exciting updates since we met last, which was, I believe, a little bit over a year ago. I think we met in February of last year. Yes, which is wild. Time flies. So we've definitely had a lot of evolved needs and increased collaboration with different content area experts, both within the context of our DEIB advisory committee to the school committee. That's why a lot of folks are on the table familiar. And we've done a lot around in-service professional development, both during Teacher Academy in August and then our professional development day in March, which we could certainly talk about if there are questions there. I co-chaired the DEIB advisory committee with our school committee chair, Marwa Hassanan. And that's sort of, it's continued to evolve to both needs and configuration identified by data we accrue and needs identified within the membership. So as of this year, it's comprised of 3 subcommittees, again, sort of like a natural evolution from the previous few years. The 3 subcommittees are, one's focusing on recruitment, hiring, and retention practices, which is a challenge both within the school district, the region, the state. I'm sure preaching choir. The second subcommittee is looking at professional development, so all things staff education and staff enrichment. We were going to sort of hold it there and have those be the 2 specialty areas, but a third need was pretty quickly identified, and luckily we had the expertise in the room to work through that. So the third subcommittee looked at, we haven't really come up with a snazzy name, but both mental health as an umbrella topic and also trauma-informed practice. So that was, again, sort of a natural evolution. A lot of folks that served on the mental health committee, which was another separate advisory committee to the school committee, transitioned into that work as well. So seeing how what our needs are. I think not to create a cliffhanger here, but, the report out, from all of those subcommittees work throughout the year will occur at our June school committee, meeting. So having sort of final recommendations that then per our policy go to the school committee for, them to deliberate around what's going to be implemented is the next step. So that's sort of my overall arching, quick summary of the DEIB Advisory Committee. Happy to speak to that or other programming curriculum.
How about maybe a little bit about our membership? We have about
Sure.
probably 40 people.
Yes, we have about 40 people. As one can imagine, said 40 people all serve in lots of different capacities and lots of different entities across the city, region, state. But it's a really robust combination of students, staff at every level and different parts of the city and different buildings. We have content area experts, so folks representing academia, folks representing leadership and lived experiences, both in terms of different identities and different content areas, which is really exciting. Folks in all different realms of mental health service providers, medical service providers, direct service, advocacy, legislative advocacy. It's really across the board. And I think it's meaningful because so many of us wear multiple hats. And speaking candidly, you can see the difference, at least from my perspective, with being asked to sit on a panel because you know you're checking a box. And I feel really confident and hope that resonates with all the folks that we've asked that are genuinely there for all of the perspectives that they hold. So it's an ongoing evolution, it's an ongoing work, but the way that we've configured the meetings is both time together, because I think a lot of cool sort of think tank magic happens when the whole group is together, and then the work in the different areas. So time that we're together as a group has been a combination of either talking or thinking through something going on either nationally through, right here in our city, or if there's a specific need identified from a member of the school committee or the superintendent. So an example that I thought of recently that I may have alluded to last year, but wasn't fully to fruition and has since been approved as of, I think, June of last year. We had co-written, it was June of 2023. Collaboratively, we had authored the statement regarding targeted violence and hate, as a response to a lot of things that we were seeing playing out, all around the country, if not the world. So, that was a document that we drafted, provided to the school committee. It was approved, and it's available online. I should have brought a lot of copies. I brought one that I'm happy to share. So those are sort of all together deliverables or projects that we've taken on as well, alongside the different content areas.
It's become kind of a culture, I think, for us. And I would just kind of piggyback on what Dana said. If you go back 2 years, we had a partnership with UMaine, and of course we still do. And we did a equity audit just to see where we were doing well and where we were falling short. We also participated in coursework with UMaine. Teachers from each of our schools and some of our administrators as well took 3 courses throughout the year. And then they presented last year at our professional development day. This year, our PD day was the 15th. And I just want to say we've kind of embedded the culture, because I think what teachers like, we did a survey on them and it was over 99% liked having choice, so they could pick what they're going to learn about. So we had teachers that are part of our diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging committee. We had some administrators, we had some community folks. I know you and Dina spoke at one of our meetings. Dina spoke at our professional development. So teachers chose the learning they wanted to do. And we had a keynote too that was very good, talking mostly about special education and inclusion. So we feel like it's become a part of our learning. And I think the key that I would want to share tonight is that our teachers are actually doing the presentations and our personnel is going to pick what they want to learn. So I think that's been a good cultural move for us. To what Dana said too, the three committees are all doing important work. We worked really close with Principal Butler at the high school on the mental health group is working a little bit about, could we have support groups for students for various needs? The recruitment group is working quite a bit on, we have a little bit of money, it's 25,000 to spend, which we have to spend by September 30th on recruitment. So we're looking at a headhunter, going to visit different colleges, whatever the idea might be. So that's,
Yeah,
so they're doing some work that's really pretty meaningful. And then as Dana said, it'll come before the school committee. I think it's June 12th. And it's an advisory group, so they share and then our school committee can decide what they want to use or what they don't want to use, along with the superintendent. And then the third group, the PD group, professional development, that's a direct correlation that they just presented on March 15th. A number of them did. That was really good. Kelsey Stoyanova, who you've probably heard of, is one of our new teachers, and she was the main teacher of the year, and she was one of our presenters. So that was a nice thing for her and for our teachers as well. We did the MIAS, and Principal Butler's done a lot of work on this, so I'm gonna steal his thunder, but what the MIAS is the main integrated youth health survey. It comes out every 2 years, so basically we have a baseline now. And if you'll, I appreciate you doing it, maybe share how many students participated, and we can give you some, I don't know if you want to use these, but if you do, here's stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so happy to be here.
yeah, like.
Still in on the role of the committee on the way in. That was helpful. Paul Butler, I'm principal of Bangor High School. I've been there for, I guess this is my 13th year. And last fall, February was the first administration of the main integrated youth health survey. It's a within-day electronic survey. It was formerly known, if you're familiar in public health circles, formerly known as the MIDOS, Main Youth Drug Abuse and Use Survey. The purposes and the interest in gathering, actual opinions and behaviors of students that are health related is very popular. And there are a number of groups that I know either as a case for action, grant pursuit, and others, or as a source of evidence for efficacy of public health work that's underway. The survey has a role in that, and it's electronically administered. It's done during the school day in small groups with the appropriate kinds of lead-in and opportunity to participate or not participate presented to families and to students. So last February, our first administration open to all students. We didn't have any families that chose not to have their student participate. But on the day of, it's not unusual to have students that choose not to participate. There's free will in everything they do. So on that day, we have about 1,150 students. We had over 600 submit the survey. And that in survey terms is a quality term, and what we would think is generalizable and actionable in a technical sense and certainly a practical sense. So my intention is to give you this overview. The data it's fairly fresh still. We've aired it internally as superintendent and Dana referenced. We had a time where I presented in the same way that I'll present to you to our broader DEIB committee. They're broad cuts right now. I'm still understanding there is a technical side to all this, and there's been some shifts at the state level, who's governing, overseeing, and sort of managing the rollout of the data. Because we were newer, there were some challenges at getting us the type of access and recognition internally, literally, like not recognition, praise, good for you, but recognition. Who are you? What's your school? And where is your data that they were responsive to? So here it is anyway. And I'll tell you, I've done this 3 times now in various settings. It's pretty dense stuff. I'd be happy in superintendent copies of things. These are my creation. They're things that when you take a survey that's well over 100 items and boil down to 60 or so core items, and then you start doing some comparisons over time and by county and state, you start to get cross-eyed a little bit, and the messages can get interfered with. So what I thought I'd do is I'd give you an overview of each of the clusters. I won't take too much time, give you an overview of how they designed the, each cluster, how many questions, and what are the pertinent takeaways as we see it from the first round of it. But, so there are 5 clusters, and even though students won't take the exact, won't, on the whole, respond to the very same questions, we get reported out on the 60 or so that were common to all students that they put in 5 main health clusters. So 1 is nutrition, physical activity, and healthy weight. Cluster 2 is use of alcohol and tobacco. Cluster 3 is the use of marijuana and other drugs. Cluster 4 are demographic factors, sexual behavior, and suicide and depression. And cluster 5 is 2 topics, 15 items: bullying, violence, and assets. Those things that you look for to be around a student to be a bulwark against, or alternatives to the types of behaviors that might become dangerous and become a broad concern showing up too prevalently. So cluster 1 was nutrition, physical activity, healthy weight. There were 16 items over those 3 topics. And again, they report out, when we look at our reports, they report out each item in each cluster relative to the county and relative to the state by straight percentage. And then does the evidence show statistically that a respondent set is statistically higher, much higher, or statistically lower, much lower than you expect? And what we've come to learn as we've dug into the data nearly going is if you just look at the number, that doesn't tell the whole story. Oh, isn't it great that we're lower than the state in this area, yet still some percentage still engage in a behavior that would be concerning to us. So that's why this can be, it's layered work, and I'm happy to present it here. So anyway, under physical activity, health, and weight, there are 16 items. We're consistent with the county and the larger state of respondents. No outlier high or low, but some items of interest. Two out of 3 Bangor High School students self-reported a BMI in the healthy weight range. Slightly higher, had slightly higher indicators on the choice to engage in regular physical activity, which they defined as exercise on 4 or more days over a typical week. And nearly half of Maine students consume 1 or more sugary beverages on 5 of 7 days a week. And that was interesting to me. And I think all of public health topics sort of intersperse with one another. I used to be as part of the a regional public health advisory board. I was there in the MIOC days, the Maine Youth Overweight Collaborative, and the 5210 power up, avoid those sugary beverages, be active, and those types of things. So you'll see, if you've been in public health circles for a while, you'll see the themes come up in residence and any number of the items, but healthy in that way. Cluster 2 was use of alcohol and tobacco, 12 items over the 2 topics. We're comparable with the county in Maine on 8 of those, highlighted by half of the kids still say alcohol in the state of Maine is easy for them to get. That 40%, 4 in 10, have had more than a few sips of alcohol in their life, and over a quarter have reported having tried a vape product. And the significant variance, this is the first area of surprise for us. Significant variance on 4 of the items under alcohol and tobacco. 1 was recent vape usage, and about 11% of Bangor High School kids versus 16% of kids more broadly had vaped over the last 30 days. And that's lower than we might have expected. There's less indication by our kids of having engaged in binge drinking, significantly less. Yet 1 in 4, that's an example of, wow, we're less, yet 1 in 4 have reported having 5 or more drinks at one time over the last 30 days. So lower in some ways, but still health concern present. And on 2 items, our students indicated comparatively better understanding of the dangers of consumption at any level. And, you know, and that the way I'm starting to learn I know enough about surveys that questions, the nuance of questions and the subsetting of who responded here, and then where do you take them? Those are things that we're still trying to understand, but those are interesting things on those two clusters. Cluster 3 went into marijuana and other drug use. There were 12 items, and again, consistent between Bangor High School, county, and state, but of course, some items of interest. And this is one that wasn't a happy surprise at all, I guess. 9 out of 10 respondents statewide said that their families have clear rules and expectations about drug use. 1 in 3 respondents indicated that substance abuse is problematic in their home. 1 in 3 indicate having tried marijuana, and 1 in 7 indicate having tried marijuana before high school. And over half of Maine kids indicate, like alcohol, marijuana is easy for them to get. And however, similar across, school, county, and state, for low levels of school-based use, about 1 in 25 respondents said they'd used drugs as part of their school day, and similarly, diverted drug use, having taken a drug that was diverted from a prescribed use for private use. So those were low levels. Those are healthy indicators, as I see them in Bangor High School, parallel with the county and the state. Chapter 4, demographics, sexual behavior, suicide, and depression. There were 9 items on those 3 topics. We were comparable to the county and the state on 7 of them, and I'll highlight some. Approximately 18%. The way I try to articulate these is not by percentages, but by 1 in 5. So here, about 1 in 5 kids have considered a suicide attempt in the last year. Over 1 in 3 of our respondents identified their mental health as a limiting factor in their activities, that they pulled in, withdrawn because of their mental health status. Nearly 1 in 3 have sought help for their mental health needs from an adult. And where schools across the state are similar in having their students report, they're similar of the schools that participated, that only 2 to 3% of those students who have sought that help from a school-based adult. And then this is a little bit of a toss in, but 1 in 20 speak a language other than English at home. And that's relevant to us. We have a growing population of students, and we're trying to be on the growth curve on that kind of data. There was significant variance on 2 items, and these were higher for Bangor High School. 1 in 3 students who responded to our survey selected a specific identity group under the LGBTQ umbrella. And 1 in 3 self-identified specifically as LGBTQ as compared to 1 in 4 in Maine. And the difference in fractions doesn't seem like much, but again, in the way that the data is interpreted for meaning, where you make meaning out of it, there is a significantly higher percentage of Bangor High School respondents who identify in those ways as compared to respondents in other schools last February and May. And the last area is cluster 5 is bullying, violence they've experienced, and assets as bulwarks against. Those 15 items, we're comparable to Maine and the county on 9 of them. 1 in 5 students indicated significant violence, having experienced significant violence in their homes. 1 in 5 have experienced bullying in school, and then similar 1 in 5 indicate experiencing electronic bullying of some type. 3 out of 4 indicate at least 1 caring adult at school. That's a critical metric for student support and student success.
Did you say 1 in 5?
75%.
75. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
75% reported
Okay.
a supportive adult at school. Approximately 50% indicate feeling that they matter in their community, and 80% indicate consistent feeling of family love and support at home. So some things that in some ways maybe might suggest conflict with one another, but on the whole, those are ways that we lined up. There was variance on 6 items. In Bangor High School, 1 in 3 or significantly higher than Maine in reporting for, self-reporting for or more ACEs. If you're familiar with that framework, ACEs are the adverse childhood experiences that over the last 10 years or so has grown in import because it's evidence that students, anybody, but students in this case who experience a traumatic experience and a set of traumatic experiences go on to have a lower lifespan and experience more health difficulties over the course of life. Operating theory is you're carrying around stress from those life experiences that does have a toll on your body. So it was significant that 1 in 3 versus 1 in 4 at Bangor High School as compared to the state, coming 4 or more ACEs on that metric. 1 in 3 versus 40, just over 40% Maine, indicate that school rules, and there's some work that we need to do with this set of data told us there's some work that we need to do with. And we've had a few conversations about how we respond to the things we're seeing in the survey. School rules are not fairly enforced most or all the time. 79% of about 80% of kids at VHS, national, aligned to national reports of feelings of safety at school versus 84% more broadly across Maine, 79 to 84. I feel safe at my school. Bangor High School, about 1 in 20% versus 1 in 3 on the state level. School conflict is addressed helpfully most or all the time. In the last couple, Bangor High School, 31%, Maine, 43%. Adults, school adults care and encourage students most or all the time. And VHS is slightly lower on the presence of a non-parent adult support most or all the time. So you can see how going through the questions and the semantics and how they lead to one another makes a broader conversation, I guess, easier to chew on than get your head buried in spreadsheets. But I'd be happy to share any of that along the way. The set of data that accompanies the release annually, or when the year in which the survey is taken, those items are getting built out on their website, and I'm looking frequently for them so we can continue to unpack and understand.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Can I ask, what happens? I mean, obviously you say we need to address some of these things and it gives us some clues as to what needs attention, but overall, how is this data used, to make changes?
Well, we're just starting that process now. First thing is understanding and unpacking it. I've addressed, like I said, to the superintendent and our DEIB committee next week, meeting with student council, executive board on Wednesday. Executive board Wednesday, broader student council on Thursday for their perception. We've had a little bit of not survey conflict, but we've had a couple of surveys that we administered. This one last year, the results are coming out now, and then another framework survey that we had to prioritize. So that's a long way of saying last at the in-service day that Ms. Tager referenced, we started unpacking the PBIS survey, not the MIYHS survey, because moving that work ahead was more of immediate need when we're working within that system PBIS that the schools have adopted. So it'll roll out to faculty.
What's PBIS?
Oh, boy, PBIS is, and everybody loves the jargon. Every
acronym.
It's not just education.
Positive-based intervention supports.
Okay.
So behavioral. Yeah.
Okay.
Positive behavior
That's helpful.
intervention. So it's basically a system that says, align up your expectations, communicate them clearly, reward and sanction based on those parameters, and culturize your school based on expected and observed or not observed behaviors. And part of that is doing a baseline climate. And so you do sort of a 360 climate and you unpack those, what are students telling you, what are community members telling you, what are faculty telling you. And this is strictly what students are telling you about their own behaviors in that public health context within the on-school.
To your question too, I think Paul's really good with data and did a really nice job, I thought, of sharing with you some of the key points. We're also, our mental health subcommittee is also reviewing this.
Okay.
And when we talked about maybe support groups, so we're looking at,
Mhm.
you know, where are we a little bit different than the state of Maine? Or nationally, when you look at things too, and are there some areas that we could help with as far as mental health with counseling and support groups? So I think it's being looked at immediately.
Yeah.
Paul's done a nice job of running it through the different groups at the school. Importantly, the students are gonna be getting that in the next week or two, and then we also, Community Health Leadership Board, we're gonna present there too. Paul's gonna join me. So those are the area CEOs of the hospitals, basically.
Yep.
Well, I'll give you an example. Everybody on the planet's concerned about vaping, use of vape products, and was a little surprised to learn that our incidence, at least as reported by students, is lower than what you expect.
Yep.
But that shouldn't hinder us from, we're looking at vape sensors in the bathrooms, you know, a little bit more exit and hallway permission control, let's just say, a way to keep better track and those types of things. That there are things that speak out directly that ask for some action. There are others that grow over time. So we're just unpacking it right now, talk to students, broader faculty, and by the end of the year, have a firm set of steps that prioritize the most important things that we think we need to respond to.
Thank you.
Of course.
The other key is too, is this is every other year, so
Right.
having
Okay.
a second time of data will be helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah. And this question's for obviously the Bangor students, but I don't know if there's an answer for all of the Maine students, but 600 students took this.
Hmm.
Out of those students, is there any indication as to how many of those students have IEPs, have 504s? Was there any specialized?
No,
Opportunity
there's
to-
no demographic collection along those.
Okay.
On those fronts, no demographics or things that
Yeah, do
would
you,
help us look at subgroups or.
yeah, do you think that there was the same opportunity for students in every self-contained classroom?
At
to-
11 o'clock AM.
Yeah,
And we made a big deal of it, but when we got to say, you gotta give students, families a fair right to participate or not participate awareness. You unpack it for them, you give enough time, you give the opportunity, and then you literally put the survey in front of them, give them time to do it. That happened for every student at Bangor High School
Okay.
on that day, but there's also a line, you also don't want to create, once you've done your due diligence in fair notice and compliant with all the things that you need to do to get good results, you also you don't want to oversell it. Right? So you
Yeah.
just want a natural environment
Yeah.
for students to tell you those things. So every student had the opportunity.
okay,
And every student received, and every family received the awareness and the opportunity if they chose to
okay.
not have their student participate.
It's a high rate, I think, of students that
Yeah.
took it because
Yeah.
it was by choice.
Yeah.
And I also think it was interesting that we didn't have parents that turned it down, so students.
Yeah,
made
that's
their-
what I was
made
surprised
their
by that,
choices.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of students. Yeah, that's great, thank you.
I want to thank you guys for your presentation. This is kind of, I know my second time hearing it, but it's, like you said, it's a lot of information to go into, and I appreciate you kind of summarizing key parts, so we weren't 16 pages in, kind of going, what does this mean? I had two questions. One is, it's just related to the work, but were these surveys able to be taken in a different language?
I was gonna ask that too.
They weren't,
Yeah.
and that's probably, an oversight. I'm not even aware of a version of the integrated youth health survey that is translated.
Yeah,
It's very.
yeah,
We're using a lot of AI for translations, but I think this was at the mercy of the people that create the test.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious, and so I have to ask this question,
No,
I guess,
of
with my
course.
frame. The other one I have is, are there certain questions that you wish you could go deeper into, where sometimes they were maybe just like, I know one of the answers is like, do you feel safe in school? That was like one of the key, do you wish that do you wish / are you able to go deeper into what that means for students? Because I think that like safe in what way?
That's actually the first conversation, that's the launching conversation with the student council. I mean, I want them to understand it, but that's one that I'd like to understand better.
Mhm.
I think I know the answer, but it's important to hear from kids, and we've had a lot of success in having students be part of the solution. So that's one in particular.
I think copies for us if we are interested in the 16
Sure.
pages.
Absolutely.
That would be it.
One-
You got a good summary. This way you can digest more, I think.
Oh,
And
thank you.
also, if it is helpful, and this will be another testament to, thank goodness that Dr. Butler here put this together. You can access if you type in MIAS, it's under maine.gov.
Thank you.
You just type in MIAS into Google, you can access, it's county, it's broken down county and state, right?
Really, I recommend at least an hour to understand the layout.
But there are these, like, I mean, just for Penobscot County, it's this 80-something page PDF that makes that look like a digestible snapshot, and that's
Thank you
still
for
very
that.
data heavy, so.
Thank you.
Could I add a thought? And we can totally say no, or it's
You
too much.
absolutely can. I think Gabrielle was just about to ask.
Yeah.
I think Catherine will.
I'm
offer for
sorry.
you.
And you didn't mention it, and I'm going through and I'm trying to find if there's anything in here about this. And I think everyone on this committee knows my special interest is housing, but were there any questions on the survey asking students how they felt about their housing security?
Nothing, not in those direct terms, no, I'm not aware.
Okay.
Not, these are, and I should say, if it wasn't clear,
You didn't make up.
I would, no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
we did
fair.
they're standardized, so these are the questions that students answered in common.
Oh,
don't-
actually, I did just find something about students reporting housing instability.
And wouldn't housing instability constitute that ACEs, right?
Yeah, I think that would be.
Technically,
yes,
That would
yes,
be
it
collapsed
would.
under ACEs.
Yep, and there is a thing in here and it's a low statistic, which is good, so.
What
What are
is
you
it?
seeing?
It's less than 1 per 33 students.
What is
Yeah.
the question though?
Percentage who reported housing instability, anything other than in my parents' or guardian's home or school housing. And for Bangor High School, it's 3.2%, which is higher than the main average, though.
Okay.
The state average looks like it's 2.6%. So it's something, but it's good to have this information. Like, this is really valuable data.
Deep dives, for sure.
Thank you. Catherine, did you?
Oh, I was just curious if you plan on doing any more statistics with this and more like associations or correlations between the clusters or?
Well, I don't know I don't know enough about there is a technical manual, it's a couple years old. You would need the technical manual to do that type of work. I'd be open to it. I'd be more interested in, at first run would be, where do we see similar or conflicting information across other surveys? Yeah.
UMaine offers its, I think it's a consultant for statistics. And I would just recommend like the things that are statistically significant across clusters, you could continue to look at how significant those associations are, and then that's just a way to also develop interventions.
Right.
That's great, Catherine. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions on the MIAS?
None of the MIAS, but I
Yeah,
have a
I do
general
have-
question about
Yeah.
DEI in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
Just because it's a big election year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and this
Thank
is
you.
probably more of a question for Dana than anybody else, but I think we're lucky to live in a community that really supports DEI, and we have a city council and a school board that is, really pro DEI, but there is a political environment in which, DEI is really very strongly objected to.
Yeah.
And there are laws in states now where DEI programs are being essentially outlawed.
100%.
And I'm just wondering if you've had any pushback on your position, and if you have sort of if you if you prepared sort of a response to
Yeah.
that anticipated pushback.
Yeah, speaking really candidly, yes, to everything you just said, what I lead with, and I mean this genuinely, I don't, and I'm not being coy, I'm very serious. I do not think acknowledging diversity as a fact and inclusion as a goal and equity as a response to the diversity and belonging as the pie in the sky goal, and that's the sort of cultural climate change that's hardest to quantify, hardest to get to in all of our goals. I don't think any of those things are inherently political. I think they're politicized, and I think that those are two really, really different things. And that being said, I grew up outside of New York City, very different climate and demographics than where I call home now here. And I have parents like good New Yorkers, they retired to Florida. My mom's literally a whole working volunteer, like at this exact moment. And I have a sister who's an attorney in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay.
So, really good comparative models there. I have found, feedback from some folks, not even regionally across the state, or some folks that my names come up, with colorful thoughts about what I do and don't do, which is no different than I think folks in these positions like mine. Mine was the first standalone position of its kind in the state of Maine, which is a really wild, profoundly huge responsibility that I carry every day. So the first thing I did when I took this position was start Googling and finding other people in similar positions like mine. And they're more common, not shockingly, in more heavily populated and demographically all kinds of protected class demographics, diverse regions of the country. So I started like cold calling people, figuring it out, which is really wonderfully translated to a robust network of folks that are now in standalone positions in the state of Maine. I think it's over 10 now, more concentrated in Cumberland County, but would not shockingly in York County. But overwhelmingly, I think the feedback I have gotten from our constituents, so our community members, our voters, our students, our staff, has been really positive. And I would much rather hear from a parent, and again, I'm very transparent and serious with this. I would much rather hear from a parent or a student that something I did or connected them to made life a little easier or a little better than the unnecessary volume of like social media commentary, because I don't think any of our work, and that's why, and I know we've talked about this a lot. I struggle with the DEIB title, because I think that it's public health, it's housing, it's immigration, it's everything. I can make a case for statistics being DEIB related. So having it be less siloed in this like DEIB bubble and more infused into everyday, but like trauma-informed practice is best practice and DEIB practice and public health and all these things. So not to soapbox that too much, but I mean, yes, it's a wild time to be alive in this role, but I feel supported, and I'm not just saying that because Superintendent Tager's here, I'm serious, while recognizing that roles like mine are cut left and right in other parts of the country, and that's a big thing to carry.
She was very humble. She does a really fantastic job and is sought out across the state, across the country, to kind of piggyback on some of what she said. We've presented together a couple times, and she's presented with Marwa Hossman at events that I have not been at. And most of the people that come to hear what Dana has to say, or Marwa or myself, are coming from the southern part of the state. Almost when we present, it was kind of interesting. I'm like, where are all the people I know? And there weren't really around, so I'll be very candid about that. But I think that the reason this has been successful is we have a school committee that cares. They have a sense of belonging for all 3,500 of our students. And I think what's really nice, I've been in 3 superintendent's jobs, but this group is really invested in the fact that they all have kids in our system, mostly in younger grades. And I think that, they want what's right for all students. And we're also at a change point too. We had one multilingual teacher here 3 years ago. We're now working on our budget and I think we're gonna have 6. So we're up to 138 multilingual students. We'll be up to around 250 by next December. So numbers are growing. We have a bunch of countries represented, a lot of different languages. And I think that, you kind of looked at the survey and you saw that we had a little bit higher than the state of Maine and probably nationally that identifies LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
And we have it would not be, like, I probably have one of the worst jobs in America, to be totally honest. Not here, because I love the people I work with, but it's gotten so political. And I think if you have a school committee that is not interested in banning books, they're interested in doing what's right for students, I think you can make a lot of growth, but I feel for some of my colleagues in other places
Yeah.
that no longer have jobs.
Yeah, that's the reason why I asked, because you hear about it in, you hear about it in the media. That, all kinds of crazy things going on and, it's nice to hear that that's not happening here.
Yeah, and I would just implore, because
We've had our moments, believe me.
Oh, I'm sure, I'm sure,
We've been
I'm sure.
attacked, but we have.
I mean, and
support.
Bangor is
Yeah.
a solidly purple
Yeah.
place, which is exciting. I've always said that the most important kind of diversity is diversity of thought. Like that's where we all begin from. The world would be far more boring, sometimes easier, but far more boring if we all thought the same, But I would just implore any folks with questions or concerns, and I mean, we don't always get it perfect, and a lot of our policies will and should continue to evolve and change and be amended, but if there are questions about all of the hot button topics, with any underrepresented population, I think what's really in the intersection right now are LGBTQ students and policies that accompany that student population. If there are questions, like reach out to school staff and figure, because we definitely have thought through those answers and have consulted with folks far smarter than me to navigate those things and doing what's right by students. Again, I don't think we always get it perfectly, but we've been able to really do some important work that, I mean, as someone with a wife and I have 2 small children, like my role would have made, and I know that sounds cheesy, but it would have made a significant difference for me. And again, I don't think we always get it perfectly. We don't always get it right, but an example I could think of, we successfully pursued a grant last year under the Nellie Mae Education Foundation and had a series of 5 events, and the grant call was for supporting and empowering LGBTQ plus youth. That translated to a series of events that students designed themselves, and we had the city council chair, Kara Pelletier, presented a leading with your authentic self, I believe it was titled, workshop, and leading by example. And we had 2 events, one in the late spring and one in late fall for this school year, a panel of different content area experts. And it was an open dinner invitation panel for LGBTQ plus students and their parents, guardians, caregivers, that I think was just really helpful. And it was a really beautiful transition as well for the event this school year. We opened it up to our middle school families as well, and having middle school parents that I think any parent, most parents want to keep their kids safe. I think for very vulnerable populations like LGBTQ plus kiddos, their parents being able to have an event where their kids are seen and thought about and cared for, and they have the opportunity to meet other caregivers and have their kids meet other kids that they'll see in 1 or 2 or 3 years at the high school because they're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Like it was just one of those times where I'm like, okay, we're doing it and we're moving forward. And again, I recognize that even with the most articulate messaging and best of planning, we don't always get it right. And there are lots of superintendents and lots of states that would never have happened. So it's a balance.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody else have questions? I have a couple questions. Yeah.
I
go
kind
ahead.
of have one, but kind of just like I've heard this from a lot of kids. Part of why they procrastinate on the transitioning process is because of the lack of family support. So, speaking of somebody who doesn't have children and doesn't really know a whole lot about how the high school system works here in Bangor, do you guys have supports for parents to help educate them so they can better support their kids, especially where this has become so politicized?
Do you wanna, I can answer.
Good.
So it's, I think, always a challenge, for what's our role, as educators and what's not, and making sure, I don't like the term like staying in my lane, but, knowing my expertise and knowing what's not. So always, I think if parents, caregivers, guardians want resources, we're always happy to point them to, that expertise. And my background is in higher ed and public health, and I accidentally found myself in a high school and it's been magical ever since. But so having those connections locally and regionally has been really, really helpful. Having a wife who's a healthcare provider has also been profoundly helpful for pointing folks in the right direction. But in terms of like any other realm of medicine and healthcare, there's some stuff we can do, some stuff we don't do, and some stuff we collaborate on. So a good example is the Penobscot Community Health, PCHE. Why am I blanking? PCHE is Penobscot
Community healthcare.
Community Health Care. I was like, health, no, healthcare. That we now have a location in the high school. So,
Right.
like I can't do a sports physical, but they can. I can't answer a question about a diagnosis, but they can. So, I would hold it as the same. I wouldn't feel comfortable, nor do I have the expertise, nor do I know of any state or federal law that would support or a colleague that would provide like the medical care. But if parents want to be pointed in the right direction, like the panel event a few months ago, we had the associate director of Out Maine, which is the leading LGBTQ plus youth advocacy organization that they have like parent support groups. So their assistant director was there, and
Okay.
the lead provider, you're at the University of Maine School,
Yeah.
and are you at UMaine School of Nursing as well? So Sean Sibley, who is, he was on that panel,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so being able to point people to the right direction, I think is the best practice and what I'm comfortable with.
That's encouraging to hear, because I also work at Acadia Hospital, and one of the most common stories I hear from trans kids in the emergency rooms is that they are literally there because they don't have the support from their families.
And that's, and
And-
what, personally and professionally is a hard pill to swallow, to be, again,
Yeah.
very candid. I would never want any of our schools to be the safest place. And again, safety can mean 500 different things. I would, for whatever definition you're giving, I would never want our schools to be the safest place for any child, but we know in every school, in every state, in every country, there are times that it is. So figuring out how we balance those parameters, I think, again, it's politicized, but supporting immigrant youth, however they found themselves here, or LGBTQ youth, it's harm reduction, it's all of those really important things. And we have really good tethers to Acadia. We have clinician now, chaplain,
Yeah,
Greg
yeah,
Bridges
Greg.
Music is
Yeah.
he's on our
Yeah.
committee as well.
I work
so.
closely with Greg. He's
Yes,
great.
I've known him for a long, long
Yeah.
time and was thrilled when he said yes to being on our advisory committee.
Good.
Back to these two events that she mentioned that we had with Nellie Mae. I think that was
Yeah.
Bless you.
empowering because we had a student panel both times.
Right.
So we were asking, is there support for the students and families? And then the students also chose who the adults were on that panel. And then kind of to pull this off, the social workers reached out to students. And so we had some students there that were at an event with their family, which, maybe was unexpected, but I went to both events with Dana, and it was just really good and really educational. And I think that at the end of the day, if we, as a school committee, say that we're going to support all students, we need to support all students. So I think those are some opportunities that happen at Bangor High School that I think probably don't happen in a lot of other places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to agree, because some of the war stories I hear, they're not coming out of Bangor, and that's kind of why I wonder, like, what kind of support system does Bangor High School have for supporting these students that maybe aren't getting the support at home, or maybe their parents aren't even open-minded enough to attend those kind of events.
Right beside me, and I would tell you that our student board, student members that night that were on that panel, they steal the show. I mean,
Yeah,
they didn't ask some good questions. I mean, you certainly
whatever.
do, but
It was, no, it was.
but it always comes
yeah.
down to the students.
Good.
And the fact that they picked the adults that were there, I think it was a good event.
It's telling.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Awesome. Can I just ask a quick question about your, so the mental health committee is now with the trauma informed, right? It's been combined into one subcommittee, is that correct?
Trauma informed is under the umbrella of mental health is what I heard.
Yeah. Well, I know that there was a mental health committee that felt like it had a lot of like parent involvement. Is that still the case? And
Maybe can you tell who the makeup is? of that
Yeah, and I wrote this down, so again, initially, when we identified, and it was based on need, and that looks like a lot of things, so what we're hearing from our students, what we're hearing from these different surveys, what we're hearing from our staff, that's really how we've been moving ahead with all of these initiatives. So initially, was again, sort of that like natural evolution from DEIB Advisory Committee last year. We're like, okay, let's focus in on two areas, diverse, recruitment, hiring, retention, and then professional development. Both the choice piece and then the setting the floor of what every staff needs to know, both, legal compliance pieces and best practice. Was, I think, only the second meeting, it became very clear, Dr. Claire Mundell, who co-chaired mental health committee, has, even with graduated students, has continued to commit time, to DEIB. She had previously served on DEIB as well. She and a student and a clinician in the DEIB committee really did say, okay, this trauma-informed practice piece, and the broader mental health umbrella, we really need to continue focusing on that. So that led to, I don't like the word collapse. I don't think that is a good
I look at it as a
depiction.
steal, really, because Claire ran that committee.
yeah, that's
So
what I was
basically,
curious.
she's running a subcommittee.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Okay.
we're like, how do we bring that? So, that's how it sort of evolved. And when I really looked at, okay, who is that committee comprised of? I'd written it down just so I would get it absolutely accurate. It's comprised of 15 people, which reflects 3 students, 5 parents, and some of these people, like a parent that's in a specific career, could be double counted for number if you're playing the numbers game. But the 5 different parents with students that are currently attending Bangor High School, William S. Cohen School, James F. Dowdy School, Fairmount School, Mary Snow School, 14th Street School, and Fruit Street School. So a good range, both in age ranges and good representation demographically across the city. Educators at all levels, Superintendent Tager, school committee, Chairperson Hassanen is on that subcommittee, and a diversity of mental health content area experts, including Catholic Charities, Partners for Peace, a PCHC clinician who is a clinician at the high school site. So it's really good feedback. I mean, we're sort of in this fortress of FERPA and HIPAA, but having one of our clinicians that works with our students serving on this committee is just, I think, best practice. And it sort of creates that two-way communication. A private practice therapist, Acadia Hospital clinician and chaplain, who I'm sure you can all guess who that is. Someone from Maine Multicultural Center, and a private practice, pathologist, physician.
We're a psychologist.
And a psychologist. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's a really good,
Not
diversity.
Claire, we have a second psychologist.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, that's
in private
fantastic.
practice. Yeah,
That's, thank you for that.
yes,
Clarification of sort of, not where it went, but sort of where it falls now.
yeah.
Can I sort of, under that umbrella, we hear a lot about restorative justice, and is this where work to identify what restorative justice practices we might be able to use in the schools would that come under this subcommittee? Is that what
I
they?
think, that's a pretty loaded question, but I think that, what will happen.
Under any
I
of
mean,
them.
yeah, Paul mentioned PBIS,
Yeah.
and certainly that's an implementation that we're into year 3. There has been some talk about restorative practices, particularly with some of our school committee members. And I think that that is the conversation that's taking place, some with the mental health group. So I think to Dana's point, June 12th, the groups are gonna report out. And that may be something that we wanna make sure
Yeah.
that they at least talk about.
Yeah.
That, and they're gonna make some recommendations to you as a school
Okay.
committee. Whether that'll be one, I don't know, but it hasn't been talked about yet.
All right.
But it's an undertaking, and I think that if that was a way that the school committee wanted to go, it does take, professional development. And it's, one of the districts I was at before, I went through it, so I understand it. I would certainly recommend it. But you have to have a belief in it and a core group that can make it work right, and then other people kind of duplicate the effort. So if it's done right, I think it's a very effective practice to look at.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
and I think there's 2 ways it's looked at: restorative practice and restorative justice. I'm familiar with restorative practice.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This is a really quick one. Really quick one. I know we're almost out of time, but I just want to say we're over time.
No,
We have a subcommittee that is also committed to hiring and training the diversity and supporting the city in that. I was just wondering if you could share your subcommittee contact information so that our subcommittee that works
Sure.
on the hiring.
I'll follow up an
Piece of
email,
things.
and I know one
Actually,
of,
Shelley's key on that.
yes, one of
Okay.
your colleagues is very much on that
Okay.
committee, and has done a lot of the legwork, and previously, Tim Surratt was on was on the DEIB committee last year, and he did an immense amount of work on that as well.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yep.
Because I know that we talk about it a lot here in terms of how we can support the city, but in terms of resources, where to go with that.
We're in a time crunch too, so we have to make
Yeah,
a decision fairly soon.
And it's a tough, and I mean, having spent the previous 7 years at the University of Maine, I mean, if we can crack the code on that, that's and I think that hiring and recruitment and then hiring and then retention, I would argue you can't have one without the other. And, I don't think it's ethical to, try pulling any folks, particularly folks from underrepresented backgrounds, with no tethered community here. It's not good practice and it's not productive. So figuring out how to
Yeah.
do that meaningfully. And again, I just want to be very clear. I don't think that that is a Bangor School Department problem. I think, it's a tough, tough nut to crack, if you will.
No, that's helpful. It's helpful to know that work's being done and we could tap into that. So thank you both so
Sure.
much.
so wait, I have 2 questions.
No,
I'm sorry, I'm moving this meeting along.
So what is not a
I
question?
don't know where to start.
So what is not a question, it's just a statement and kind of the sharing of information. So for the advisory committee members, you heard, we've talked a couple of times now about mental health
Yeah.
and general health of our students. Talked about the PCHC clinic at the high school. The city did provide the ARPA money to build out health clinics in both middle schools. So that is gonna come online for, I believe, the next school
we
year.
thank you. Yeah, we've been meeting
So-
periodically, and I think September.
Yeah, so I just
That's
wanted the
great.
committee members to know that that wasn't just an effort, the effort, they saw the benefit in high school. And how can we come down a level and really impact a student's well-being ahead of them reaching high
We
school?
appreciate
The
that,
earlier we can get it.
particularly you're doing
So-
it on both sides of town
Right.
too.
So just wanted to make sure the committee members were aware of that. And you can give thought to this, Dana, because you started with this, as you said, you have, you carry the position, a weight of the position. And what I see is, I think this committee is sort of doing its own morphing.
Yeah.
And so be really thoughtful if you could, or interested if you could put together sort of a chronicle of how the school committee DEIB started in one way.
I
And
have
how-
one.
Okay,
I already
It was
have
our
one.
beginning of the year presentation.
Yes,
Yep.
it was, yes, and I will have. it.
okay.
It's actually really
Because
good.
because I think we're,
You were like,
we're
taking over.
transitioning in the
I have
same
the
way.
PowerPoint.
All right. So I think that would be really
Cause
helpful.
we, and that's.
It's a good one.
Okay.
Coincidence that, and I promise I did not
I
like organically come up with that, but, we had a lot of new faces this year, so we kicked it off with,
Good.
I had a sort of how it evolved over the past 3 years, which, there were early formations of the DEIB Advisory Committee under, former Superintendent the late Betsy Webb, and then
Right.
I started November of 2020, so I like skirted into sort of the 1.5 iteration of it. Now I think we're probably at the 4, you know, so I
Yeah,
do have a good timeline that chronicles it, and
yeah.
I think it's like anything, it's gonna keep evolving, and I mean, I've served on different DEIB, JEDI, there's so many iterations of it, committees, and I want it to feel like a productive use of people's time,
And I think that's what we're trying to
Yeah.
transition through
Yeah.
is from this group that's all right now, how are we gonna
Now
get
what?
almost to
Yeah.
the subcommittee
Yeah.
level so that we're
Yeah.
advancing
Yeah.
and bringing forward the recommendations in a
Yeah.
similar manner, so, yay,
Yeah, I'm happy to.
All right.
pass along.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you both so
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Chat anytime.
That was so helpful. Thank you.
course.
Thanks for
I
saying.
feel like also like Evelyn can speak to any and all of like the student perspective on this too, obviously. I'm like thinking you were at the first of the 2 panel. Yeah,
I went to the first one, yeah.
you were at the first one and you were
I
able
wasn't
to
on
attend the second one. Well, I know you weren't. You were at the first one and then you weren't able, second one. I remember. Good to
Thank
see
you
you.
both.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. Bye.
Thank
All
you.
right, Robin. I'm helping you, cause you're minutes in running the meeting.
I know where to go. I'm kidding.
So the first thing we had, Robin,
Good.
I know,
I
you
was
were all
so
ex-
excited.
you were
I
all
was happy,
excited over
but you
this.
looked so excited, yeah.
It is your chance.
It's funny because I worked with Dana at UMaine and I worked in public health and I worked in higher ed and I'm like, my world.
These
is
are your
wonderful."
people.
Yes, the people.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure the last time I came to this committee meeting, but I thought maybe I'd just say a quick blurb in case you don't remember who I am. But I am Robin Stanicky, the Community Development Officer. And I work with the city's efforts to affect neighborhoods, placemaking, housing, economic opportunities, and things like that. And all of the above and
And whatever
more.
else.
Whatever else.
Whatever
else comes.
And other duties as assigned.
Correct.
Exactly, other duties as assigned. And so I've been with the city for about a year now, and I'm about to embark on a pretty big and ambitious process to do some strategic visioning and planning for the department. And I wanted to talk to you all today because a lot of that strategic planning comes with a heavy dose of community engagement. Everything that I've seen in past years of doing different types of plans do have various modes that the city has used to reach out to residents and other stakeholders to just kind of get feedback on the programming that's being done, what are the state of affairs of different, housing topics and other things like that. And I'd just like to see if there are ways that we can improve. I do feel that we can encourage more engagement overall. And I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to present our material in ways that are really thoughtful if we are ahead of the game. So in my memo that I submitted to you, I talked about how we're going to be completing some plans that are far-reaching, so they encompass 5 years, or they encompass a longer period. And those develop a strategy, but then we also update that strategy in shorter time periods. So there's a lot of opportunity to reach out and touch residents to talk about a strategy or a plan, but then also to reach out and talk about a specific topic or issue of the moment And then there's also opportunities where they're coming to us for information or resources or something like that. So all of those ways that we talk to residents, we really want to make sure that we're being inclusive. We're looking at equity. We're looking at our website. We're looking at how are these pieces of information being displayed and how are they able to access them. So a lot of different ways, you know, that I'm thinking about engagement here in this piece. Dovetailing that is a process that I sort of happened on when I was looking at all of these plans and realizing that our anti-discrimination and other compliance with law to just make sure that we are presenting opportunities for residents to bring forward any type of complaints or, you know, to expect equal treatment and to know what their rights are could be clear, could be clearer. And so again, I'm going through that with the same eye of is this understandable? Do we need to look at other languages and things like that? So what I'm planning to do is to bring forward all of our website material and ensure that, you know, backwards and forwards, it's easy to find. So that's one big thing is, and a lot of times what you do is you start with Google, City of Bangor, keyword. See where it brings me in our website. Sometimes it doesn't bring you to the same place. So trying to think, you know, like a resident that is trying to find information, where is this going to send me? And then also, one of the bigger pieces is looking at some of our language translations and what should we be thinking about in terms of language. Debbie, I think it was, you mentioned to me that our school had 57.
53 countries.
53
represented in our
countries
schools right now.
represented. And so when I thought about that, I said, that's, you know, that's a really interesting thing to consider. Who are we making sure has a sort of a seat at the table to understand not just the language, but the context of what we're asking to do. And then also as we're making these plans and I'm reaching out for feedback, do they know that I'm asking for feedback and in what ways are more helpful to get that feedback? So this includes having workshops, having committee meetings, talking about different plans and funding recommendations for community development or even housing topics. Am I in the right spaces and in the right rooms? Now, I do want to say one thing that I really enjoyed a line of questioning when you were talking about surveys. The school will be participating in our consolidated plan and they will be designing their own survey. And that will touch on housing topics. So
Okay.
whatever they decide that they would like to know more about their individual community with regard to housing, it will be interesting to see. So
Yeah.
it'll be a double because they'll be able to participate in creating the 5-question survey, but it will also. So that's going to be a really interesting thing. And it's how do you capture different communities and their perspectives?
Have you thought at all how that's going to be shared with this? I know that they sent letters home and they said, you can
Yeah,
or cannot
there's-
take it. And then they said 11 o'clock today, everyone's doing this.
Sure,
Is
it's so unlike the survey for what they were discussing earlier, that survey instrument is generally like vetted through the university or something else because an outside is creating it.
Yeah.
So this will look a little bit different because it is going to be led by students and it will be it'll be a production or a product of the school to learn more and sort of report out on their own.
Yeah.
And so even then, though, the school has their own policies about making sure that there's notice. and things like that. But the
Yeah.
design really was to say, what is important that we know about you and your experience in these sort of larger vague buckets
Right.
without prescribing, what we want to know for a data point. So leaving it really open was an activity in and of itself.
Yeah,
Because the high school kids can get involved in that, and then they're actually doing it to the middle schools. Because we have a middle school that is located in a low and moderate income area, and a school that is not, going by, school lunch data.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's an interesting way to look at those things too.
I only
So-
ask because it feels like how authentic is all of that data from this, even the state of Maine too? When you have unstable housing, like, are you at school that day? Are you able
Yeah.
to? So that's what I was just wondering in terms of an actual, I know your entire purpose is to make sure you're going to all of the places and not just waiting for if you happen to be in school at 11 o'clock on that day.
Sure.
That's why I was curious as to what that would look like.
And just also too, like high school students tend to be more aware of what their family situation is, like the specifics of their family
Sure.
situation. Like
Yeah.
if mom and dad are having a hard time paying rent, like a sixth grader is not going to have the same understanding of that,
Right,
that a 10th or 11th grader is going to have.
right.
And just when you see the cost of rents, like you figure a family of, let's say, 2 adults and 2 kids needs a 3-bedroom apartment or a
Sure.
house, and we're seeing rental prices right now for 3 bedrooms.
Mhm.
You're figuring a minimum of $1,800.
Sure.
In the Bangor area.
Yeah.
I don't know how families are affording it.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think in the context of a survey among students, the value is that, the parents can really report on their struggle to pay rent and to understand the concept of, the budget, the household budget like that. But what can a child answer
Yeah.
that only a child can answer and in that age? So that's really something that would be really interesting to get that perspective on, but also the intended consequences that they do feel like they're contributing to something that, is a 5, 10, 20-year strategy. It's going to affect them, when they're brand new adults, in all of those areas. So, and, in community development, it overlays, the economy and training. And right now their job is going to school and training, and that's, right in the thick of that. So, that's one way, engaging the community to do this strategy is, something we're trying to be a little bit more creative, to do. And I'd like to try to do other things, for the adult community, different groups that, don't typically engage, for a variety of reasons. So one of the things that I've suggested, that I think are really great ideas are to do some place-based listening, and then also to do the community-based listening. So some neighborhood, located meetings, and then also think about those specific communities that, for a variety of reasons, struggle to engage or don't have time or need a specific outreach strategy to do that. To give them a chance to speak out on it.
How is that gonna look? Is that you going to these places? Is it you making these relationships with, the housing officers or individuals?
Sure. Actually, it's all of those things. So when I do place-based outreach, this is literally going to the resident council meeting, at Bangor Housing, or going here and like creating the space, or going to where space is already created and just being there, being invited there and listening, and, being able to, share, topics and things like that.
And I think
So,
what this committee can help
yeah.
support that work is if there are face-to-face meetings that you feel this would be beneficial, it would be good for us to know. Because, Robin, so as she's talking, she gets the first, obviously, we have the tenants meeting, there's a monthly tenants meeting, I believe, at Bangor Housing.
Yeah.
you know, and so
Yeah.
that's that's a neighborhood. We
Right.
have Eastern Area Aging on Aging, or what I will call our senior population, that maybe there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, Melissa and Pam through the Multicultural Center, there's an opportunity there.
Mhm.
But there are lots of opportunities, so Andre's now doing AARP commercials.
There you go.
So there are lots of opportunities
Yeah.
and things
Yeah.
occurring in our community
Yeah, that's a
that
great.
you may all have a connection to.
Yeah.
So
But that's-
sharing those opportunities, and frankly, at times, maybe you're the entree. Maybe maybe you're the one inviting us. And where there's already an existing relationship.
Yeah.
I said maybe you're the Andre, not entree, so it took me, I'm like.
No.
Yeah, I'll be in a commercial.
Well, everybody wants to be an Andre. Everybody wants to be an Andre.
Sure.
I guess brainstorming too, thinking about the populations I work with, because I work with refugees and immigrants in the area, which, to be clear, is a specific subset of the wider immigrant umbrella. I work with specific immigrants in that umbrella, but a good outreach would be in English classes for a lot of folks learning English, whether that's at adult ed or on Maine. The University of Maine has their IEI program as well. That might be for specific like groups, but I think like adult eds might be a good start for a lot of folks, because that's where I think a lot of folks that I work with and I don't work with go to have English training, which might be for folks for English isn't their first language, to kind of help outreach.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
that's perfect. Yeah. No, I like that. The adult ed piece is one that I didn't have written down, and I appreciate that a lot. I think that the more I can find those organically occurring meetings, groups and energies, it's certainly, I don't want to create something that then I have to like keep going. So the more that I can support something that is already going, is really great, because my goal really is to tap into the energy around whatever topic is exciting for that group or important for that group or whatever has mobilized them. So, and the goal really is to ensure that, we're not creating plans with no comments, like, where are the comments? So, are we going as often as we should, in the ways that we should, digitally, in all of the ways that we should?
If you're comfortable or, willing to reach out to the more vulnerable communities, homeless, the very poor. I know that at my church, for example, we have like a bean supper once a month.
Yeah.
And we get, probably a few dozen people come. There might be an opportunity to address that
Yeah,
captive audience, if you will, of folks that you would not normally hear from in any other potential community to get
Sure.
feedback from. Might not be it might not be a very happy place to go, but this is a community of people who generally don't really have a voice in these
Yeah.
kinds of
Right.
discussions. And so just food for thought. And we're not the only church that does these kinds of
Right.
events where people gather, for food, or for some kind of assistance.
Yeah.
But it may be a way to reach to a community that is not normally heard from.
Absolutely. Yeah, we appreciate that.
I'm not sure if there are capabilities for that, because they're different entities, but working with like public benefit areas like the HHS or FedCap or general systems of either, those would be possible, because that also reaches a wide group of folks as well. For receiving those benefits, and I don't know.
No, that makes sense. And one thing that also really helps is, over the last 6 or 7 months, I've made a big effort to reach out to stakeholders who are doing similar work. So these are going to be, the schools and public service agencies, and Bangor Housing and other professionals that are working daily with individuals and can share sort of stories and observations, but sort of analyses as well, just in the general course of working. And that's also been really helpful, because that can also provide a way, you know, if I have a need for like a specific targeted outreach on, you know, something, a very specific service that I'd like to see and want to make sure that the, you know, is the need greatest to serve this way or that way. You know, I can contact several stakeholders and have access to a larger, number of their clients. So that's definitely, helpful. What do you think about just sort of like the appetite for residents to, you know, sit down and looking at a plan that's, you know, just kind of sometimes very, very onerous, and then people having to submit comments on it? I've never really seen a comment. I'd like to do something that's a little bit different, that presents the material without it being like the 15-page document of some kind. Do you think workshops are good, or some other type of presentations? Have you got any thoughts on, you know, when you take a big bite out of something like, oh, fair housing plan? Well, right?
I think if you can do it like graphically.
That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say, a
Yeah.
pamphlet that can be
Yeah.
delivered to people
Correct.
in the mail. And then on that pamphlet, you have a QR code. And that can take them for more information. And then in addition to doing that, you also do the in-person workshops, and you don't just do them at one specific time on one specific day. You do multiple different ones. So people who work weekends can attend something during the week, and people who work during the week can attend something on weekends. And that way it's accessible to people who have to work around childcare, their jobs, caregiver responsibilities, et cetera.
Absolutely.
And that way it's accessible, but, you're also providing resources for people to be able to, who might not be able to attend those in-person meetings, so they can also be involved. So, you know, the pamphlet goes out to everybody by mail, and then there's a QR code, and not just that QR code doesn't just take them to where they can get more information. It also takes them to a place where they can ask questions, where they can
Right.
submit comments. And, you would obviously need like a whole bit of online infrastructure to do this, but I think that would be the best way of reaching people. And then obviously for old timey people, you could also have the option of, please, you know, return this in the mail, and we
Right.
will send you a paper copy.
Yeah.
And that way it truly is accessible, because I know if I threw a QR code in front of my mom, she'd have no idea what to do with it. But if she would send it in the mail, and she would request a paper copy.
And I think people
Yeah.
being able to do it in their own time,
Yes,
I think more than ever, like I love the idea of workshops and the many variety of
Yeah.
workshops.
Right.
But people being able to do it in their own time. And even though I'm 100% with you in that my mom does not know what a QR code is. That woman is on Facebook.
yeah,
all the
so is
time.
mine now. All
So
she
I
does is
feel
Facebook
like-
Marketplace.
If there was some sort of social media blitz, that was there's so many easy ways.
Yeah,
You know, to swipe up and to be able to fill out a quick survey. that they
Right.
could do right on their phone.
and that's the other thing, QR code would be able to do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I feel like there's.
When I can make a commercial for you.
Yeah, here, call this hotline.
So, and that's what we do.
A ticker on the bottom, right?
A lot
Yeah.
of times we've done that. So when we've had, so for example, when we did our comprehensive plan update.
Yeah.
We had a variety of mechanisms by which people could provide us feedback. They had a specific
Yeah,
website and a web page where that if you were comfortable, you could go in. Click whatever area you were particularly interested in. You could drop your comments there. You could pin them there.
And you also sent out mail too.
We did,
Yeah.
and
With the
we also
pamphlet.
had a dedicated phone number.
Yeah,
So that if you have interest, here's a phone number you can call, leave a message, someone will get back to you. And talk to them about how to best deliver. The information to them. So, you know,
Right.
we have some people who serve on committees for the city who. It's more helpful if we mail it through the USPS.
yeah,
And guess what we do? We mail it through the USPS.
And I'm gonna bet that you wouldn't even have to, like, you wouldn't be, obviously, I'm sure you have a team of people, but you could also partner with UMaine. And they would probably send you interns to help you with that project. Yeah. I'm not volunteering. I mean, I'm kind of volunteering, but.
I wanted to add that with the QR code too, that if people can scan it, it can also be translated in another language.
Yes.
Right.
And for
So that's an interesting thing. So I have used the QR code to direct you to, so what I have now is the QR code that directs me to my community engagement website.
Mhm.
But you can actually find a QR code that will translate the website or,
So for some websites, you can have, I mean, some people do it kind of like an AI, like Google Translate Generator, where, right, when you click on it, you can just choose your language right away. So there had to be something when you scan the QR code, it wouldn't be a different QR code, when you scan it, you can,
right,
you know.
interesting.
I don't think our
Good
current
option.
website configuration supports that, which is one of
Yeah.
the reasons we're moving to a website platform that does. But maybe on that website, if we knew that there were particular languages that are maybe more prevalent, and we might be able to get that
Advanced,
from the school department,
we can.
that we could we could take the document itself and use Google Translate to get it into the
Just-
language.
Yeah.
And we could just include it as a link. If you'd like this link in
Right.
French, click here. If you'd like this link in Spanish, click here, whichever.
Right, and that makes sense, because when I was doing the Anti-Discrimination Civil Rights Act stuff, the DHHS website has the whole,
They've got them in.
you know, language
Multitude of languages.
interpretation site with all the tools, so that I could probably use that to do
You could
a
do
very
a print,
similar
you could
thing.
almost print from it and then just scan it and upload it
Right,
as a link on our page.
yeah, yeah. I do like that, though, mailing the brochure, because this is gonna be a year to a year and a half process, so it'll give folks time to
Mhm.
engage in a number of ways.
So there are natural mailings that we have recurring.
Yeah.
It won't go to every resident, but it will,
Mhm.
so
Even
every
like-
week, we're
yeah.
mailing sewer bills.
Right,
Virtually everybody in the community is on sewer. Now, some folks,
Mhm.
it still remains in the property owner's name, so we need to find a way to get
Yeah,
to the tenants.
I was gonna say,
So,
that's
yeah,
literally the case for
that's
me.
correct.
And I know a lot of other people who rent, same thing, like their landlord, it goes to the landlord, they
Correct.
don't
And it
get
has
it.
to by law, unfortunately, so it's.
we can also do like an every door direct mail, it wouldn't be an exorbitant cost, but it would help everyone who had an address.
That would be better.
Of course, it doesn't help folks that don't have addresses.
And that's where outreach would come. in.
However, there are more, you know, direct
Yeah.
ways of being able to
Mhm.
do that and hand out information.
The ACT team,
What's that?
the ACT team.
Right, the
Yeah.
Chamber Action. That's right, I can still ask them to do stuff for a little while longer. And then there's also, you know, working with, the different, nonprofits, you know, that are doing outreach of their own, and having meetings and things like that, and they're saying, you know, will you participate with us? Because the idea is really that this is not a series of plans and strategies that I write, inventory, file, put it in a shelf in my office, and then it's done. I'd really like, you know, the community co-produces this, and feels like it's a reference document that can be used in so many different ways. And so, you know, this is an opportunity for residents to be able to say, this is how we'd like to see our community invested in. And I'd really like to see, you know, I'd like to see some more direction in that area too, so.
Do you
that's
have
really
public
helpful.
health on your list?
I do.
Because between
Obviously.
general assistance and women, infants and children and the prevention work that we do, we have a lot of
Yeah,
opportunities.
so I had a good meeting with most of the crew and individually with different departments, just, yeah, get their sense of how their work could be assisted by my department too, so.
So I'd like to put like sort of a pin in this for like an agenda for like 2 months from now.
That would be
And kind of
fantastic.
create it like a homework assignment. If everybody could kind of throw their, if you think of other things, and you
Sure.
come back.
I
And
think
kind
that's
of
great.
list all of the additional
Yeah.
opportunities.
I like that.
'Cause- Okay,
And I can, you know, obviously take everything that we've talked about here and,
if you kind of
that
summarize
are-
that, then at least we all know where we're starting from and
Sure.
say, okay, what's the next
Right,
opportunity?
Right.
Do we have what's the best way to sort of share those invitations? Obviously, we can put it on the May agenda to come back, but if before then.
So let's get, do you have an email address? I think you should do you have a regular community development email?
We have a
address?
ComDev, COM.dev.
Okay, I'll put it in the minutes.
CON.
COMM
Dot DEV at bangormaine.gov.
Yep,
All right.
Cool.
yep. And so that's a great way to, throw something my way if you have events or
Yeah.
Yep, those are
people, partners, anything like that would be really great. And then there was only one other thing on the agenda for me, and it's very related, because I know we were just talking about, tenant issues, but I've also been working on the, rental housing program. And that has also involved much of the same community engagement, meeting with stakeholders. So far, I have met with landlord liaison programs, I've met with property owners and managers, and landlords. I've met with the health and community service folks. I've met with, the HUD, housing folks on the state and local level. And public service agencies, there's a core group that leads a, sort of a housing assistance, type of collaboration. And really just all in an effort to see, what it looks like from those perspectives as they're trying to make changes, positive changes in these landlord and rental relationships with resources or, with any type of sort of logistical things that are happening. And then I have 2 tenant outreach events that are coming up. One of them is on the 12th. That's an in-person event at the Together Place for tenants to interface face to face and talk about those things that are important in the realm of renting. And then we will also have a digital sort of come as you are or can way to provide input on renting.
So, sorry to be blunt, but other than this just turning into a venting session about tenant complaints, I mean, what are you bringing to the table for them to, to provide as potential solutions?
You mean for the tenant forum?
Yeah.
About complaint, well, generally you can't escape the tenant complaint, sort of, it has to be, that it needs to land somewhere, so, sometimes
Right,
that's like the
I
first part of
understand
the
this is a
conversation,
listening
sort of,
session,
right.
but, what are you actually offering them as part of their investment in coming to talk to you?
Right, so what we really want to know is, we're putting together a program that could affect them in a variety of ways that I may not be able to anticipate.
Mhm.
And so being able to explain, here are the things that we've done to gather information. These are the outcomes that we'd like to see with a rental housing program. And then specifically for them to say, here are some issues that I might have if you do that thing, so that I can then either provide immediate feedback or realize that that needs to go into program design to say, this might be an effect that we need to mitigate if we, have some type of policy.
Okay.
So it's an opportunity to, to construct it with us.
Okay, I think I have the opposite question to
Okay.
what you just asked. Is, so you've done a ton of meetings with landlords and property managers and basically property owners. But do you have any plan to do more than just a single meeting for tenants? Because I feel like that's really inadequate for people to be able to voice their needs. Chances are that tenants are going to have a lot less flexibility in their schedules. They're probably going to be elderly, they're probably families. Whereas landlords, like they're gonna fit that into their business day, or they're going to take time from their weekend for it. But
Right.
I know you think that's gonna be just a venting session, but I feel like one of the most important things that we can be doing is finding out what are the issues that tenants are facing in their housing. Cause I know it's not just rising rents. I know it's also that properties aren't being maintained. And yeah, the quality is really bad. And it's not just that. Our code enforcement agency here in Bangor is saying that they can't stay on top of it because there's so many properties that are not to code and they can't enforce it because all they can do is send letters. So like, just to have a single meeting for tenants to voice their concerns. I mean, you could structure it, you could do multiple different meetings where different topics are gonna be discussed and, you know, this is gonna be to focus on this issue, this is to focus on this issue. But like, we wanna hear what it is that you're dealing with your landlords, with your property managers. And that way we can actually develop some sort of plan because I know the tenants' rights bill that was passed in February of last year was a step in the right direction. But since then, we've done an expansion on, you know, what can be developed where, but there hasn't really been a focus on addressing what is happening right now, what is affecting people right now. And we have to start focusing on it because rental prices aren't getting any more affordable.
Which is the direction and the reason that
Yeah.
Robin has taken.
Which is
these first
great.
steps.
Yeah, so this
We're
is
moving
great.
in the right
Yeah,
direction.
no, we are,
Definitely the
but
first steps.
it's,
It's not
yeah,
the only meeting, it's just
Okay.
the first meeting that's been scheduled.
Good.
We do also have other touch point conversations in the individual neighborhoods. But
okay,
also the fair housing workshop will be another opportunity. But it's the first of many ways that we're trying to create different and new behaviors, sitting in spaces that we might be unexpected. So,
Good.
this will be just kind of like.
It's a
one of
good
the first
start.
ways.
it's just, we need to be doing more of them in more different places of the city. Like, I live in the Second Street neighborhood, so like, I'm speaking from firsthand experience when I say, like, rents are too high, quality is very poor. It might be that you have to have 2 entrances, but like, are those entrances actually safe? Are they actually accessible? Probably not. And like those stories might be a venting session, but we need to hear those venting sessions in order to.
I'm not
yeah.
saying that you don't want to get the feedback. I'm just, what I'm saying is that, you
There's
know,
more
there-
to
there-
it. I'm not
Yeah.
we need
just
to
a
give them
repository.
something
Right,
that, you know, that what the plan is.
okay,
Not just
so,
listening to them vent and say, okay, well, you vented it, right? Yep.
yeah, and yeah, cause I get what you're saying, cause then it's.
I'm not
it's
saying, I'm not
useful.
saying they shouldn't vent. I'm
Okay,
just saying we
Right.
need to have an
It needs
answer
to be beyond.
for,
okay,
you know, there needs to be a purpose for the meeting other than just to let the people vent.
right,
Sure,
And-
and that's very true, and, you know, in other meetings I've had where, you know, the first one, sometimes it's just like, they need to let their hair down, they need to get it out. And then the second meeting is where you say, okay, now we can just workshop this, and everybody can sit with a pen and a piece of paper and say, if we did this, what will blow up, you know, that kind of thing.
right,
And so they feel really constructive, they feel like if they put their pen to paper, something will stick. And so, you know, sometimes that, you know, bimodal thing really works.
my biggest
So-
concern is just that we tend to see property owners tend to have a greater seat at the table than people who are actually in these situations.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's kind of like,
Equity.
yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's that whole power dynamic and actually going to people and making sure that their voices are heard, and not only heard, but actually seriously considered. Because,
Right.
I mean, just looking at our city council, I think we only have one person on city council who rents and isn't a
Yeah.
property owner.
Yeah.
And I feel like that speaks volumes.
Yeah, that's really important. That's really important. And our fair housing plan is gonna be something new for the city at all. Is that HUD has never required a fair housing plan. It's been to address barriers to affordable housing in a myriad of ways, but not really to look at fair housing as the intersection between protected bases and like good high-performing schools and different characteristics of housing. So that, oh, my statistics.
I know, you're getting all excited.
Anyway,
That's great.
more to come, but I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that you knew that engagement around tenant issues is
Underway.
imminent.
Good.
Yeah, it'd be great to keep this on the regular, for our meetings to get feedback and updates from you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
sharing with us and giving us sort of a snapshot into what's happening. I look
Yes.
forward to staying connected.
And next week, we should have published our community development week calendar of things that are going on in the
Oh,
neighborhoods
fantastic.
and. Yeah.
And will that
ways
be able for us to share? Like, is
Oh,
that-
yeah, it'll be like on our
Okay.
website
Very
and
good.
in the city council and stuff.
Very nice.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you.
That was so helpful. Thank you. So I know we're going long. This
We are,
meeting
but
is-
I would quit.
Okay,
I promise.
okay.
I'm gonna, how about if we skip over number 5?
Yes, I think,
Okay.
unless there's anything that is pertinent.
I was on number 3 anyway. Hang on, let me do
Okay,
number
all
3.
right, all right, all right.
So, last night, the city council approved the rezoning of a 10.5 acre parcel on Grandview Avenue.
Okay.
It has been a long held city, parcel. It was, a tree nursery 30 years ago when Dutch elm disease really decimated this community and we were growing our own replacement trees. The city council, is rezoned it as multi-family housing.
Mhm.
The city's plan is we will work on an essence of design charrette, as Anne calls it, which I've come to learn. And we'll look at a variety of layouts for the property. We are proposing to do a mix of single family and multifamily housing up
Good.
there.
Okay.
The city of Bangor will use its ARPA money to put in the roads, the electrical, the sewer, the water, and the streetlights. And in turn, we will determine what we want built. And we
Nice.
will determine the rentals we want. And we will reverse engineer an RFP to have the housing built.
That is amazing news.
So we actually are we paid to have our own property rezoned. We will pay for the subdivision. We will do all of the costs that are a risk or potentially a barrier for development, so that we can develop the housing we like. So
Very good news.
that's pretty good.
That's great news.
Yep,
Yes,
When you
that-
say we, who's we?
the city, we the city.
the city staff
We
or
the
the city
city.
council.
So, we will have a public process as what we determine how the layout of the property. There are a significant amount of wetlands on the back, so we have to be really thoughtful about how we lay the property out.
Does that affect city taxes?
It affects city taxes in that they would be new tax-paying residents.
Okay.
The money that we would use for it is the federal, American Rescue Plan Act money, which
Oh,
isn't coming from, in essence, your tax dollars if you're a resident paying this or a taxpayer.
It's that
So
money we've been
It's,
sitting on.
it's
for
your
2
federal
years.
tax dollars at work, but
that's great.
yeah,
Yeah, it is really good news.
yeah. So we're pretty excited about that. There's actually we can actually get, assistance with the RFP, structuring it and, all of that free through, a technical assistance, relationship that Main State Housing has. And we've already brought them into that discussion,
Great.
so.
What's the timeline?
So I think in the next couple of months here, we'll be doing the design work,
Mhm.
because I think it's gonna be important that we settle on the layout.
Mhm.
That will allow us to move forward with the utility construction work and get a good estimate on that, so.
Okay.
Actually, I
So
have a
we're looking at a couple, 3 years before
Maybe.
there actually houses.
Yeah, but it's more
Yeah.
houses than we
Alright.
had before,
Yeah.
and it's the
Absolutely.
type of housing
We
that
need,
we determine.
yeah, we need.
It's up to us.
And since it's up to us,
Correct.
is there any plan to partner with UMaine for their sustainable housing units that they've developed?
So
Because,
there's already an
that's
existing
great.
relationship with Penquist.
yeah, yeah,
And so they've done the prototype. I think the prototype was done last year.
yes.
And they're
I've
doing
toured
a
it. It's
winter,
great.
they're doing a winter
Mm.
to see
Yeah.
how and what tweaks they may need to make.
They did that
for
last winter
Okay.
and,
So I haven't heard an update
it's-
on where they are yet with that, but yeah, I mean,
We
we've
should
all,
invite them.
Penquist has always been looking for space and we're like, we're happy.
Yeah,
One of the more
I'm-
natural partnerships we have is with Habitat for Humanity.
I was gonna say actually regarding UMaine, I know what their obstacle is and
Okay.
it's production.
Yeah.
Because right now they don't have the electricity or the scale to be able to do the producing of the properties, but they're working on it. And I believe that their timeline right now is 2 to 3 years. So if
Okay.
the city is looking at the same timeline, I
But
mean,
we could be built by then.
could be.
So
Yeah.
I noticed that the
Hope so.
University of Maine system, BioHome 3D,
Yep,
scaling up the technology to address critical affordable housing shortage in Maine. They received $4 million through the congressionally directed spending awards.
yep,
That were recently enacted by Congress. So
good.
they have a lot of good things, I think.
That's great.
Question.
Yes, that's one.
I had a question about the housing development. Is there a
Yeah.
goal for who will be moving in there, if like elderly families, low-income families, or homeless?
We haven't even determined that. I think once we sit and look at how many, what is the right layout based on the wetlands restrictions and configurations. I know I've had in my mind, we know we need single-family housing that's affordable. That's why Habitat for Humanity was a great partner for that. They have $1 million worth of ARPA money that the city granted to them, but their ability to construct multiple units in one location is a big win for them. Because their model of one-offs here and one-off there, they're finding isn't really as cost effective and efficient for them to do. If you hire a contractor to come in and pour 7 slabs, it's far more cost effective than if you're doing one here and then driving across town and doing
Yeah.
another one there.
Part of why I'm really hoping that UMaine is able to step this up sooner than later, because it would make such a huge difference for our city. And it would solve the single family home shortage that we have.
Still gotta have the
Yeah,
land.
I know.
That becomes the
Yeah,
other problem.
yeah,
But we have a nice 10-acre parcel, so we wanna do a mix of multi-unit and single-family residential. We've also talked about ensuring that maybe we have what's referred to as attached residential. If you think about like condos side by side where they're all attached to one another. We've talked about single-story, wide thresholds
yes,
so that people could age in place, live in place from an
Yeah.
accessibility standpoint.
because that's a huge shortage. Yeah.
We also know some folks that are involved with veterans interests, so I think we have no shortage of potential partners. And we just need to, as I said, the rezoning was passed last night, so
Yeah.
now we need to
Yeah.
sit down and start. Think about your little plastic houses in Monopoly or whatever, and trying to lay it out and say, what's gonna fit best and what works for the neighborhood? And how can we, so. it's kinda
That's
cool.
great. That's very good
Yeah.
update. Thank
Very
you.
exciting.
It is.
Thank you.
Um,
So next, we have no new policy updates. In the essence of time, is there anything from the subcommittees? I know that we have our hike for the homeless coming up. Is that next week? Yeah, next weekend.
yep, like that,
Yeah.
next,
A week from Saturday.
Yeah, Are there any updates or anything anybody needs to share regarding that opportunity to join?
No, I mean, you can certainly,
Sign up, yeah.
sign up as an individual if you want to walk with AARP. Just shoot me an email, I'll put you on the list.
Cool.
I'm
how many
unable
groups you
to.
walking with?
I'm just walking with AARP. I told you.
Okay, cause
only
you
walk
always
with
have
one
all
group.
kinds of groups on
Well,
there.
I mean, yeah, my church is doing,
We'll be there.
doing a
We
group
walk between
themselves, but I'm walking with AARP.
Fantastic, thank you. Thanks. And then, I want our, events and education committee, last year, we had a table at Bangor Pride. I thought that was
Yep.
really positive.
We got to do that again.
Okay, awesome. So
Yeah.
registration is opened.
Okay.
Do you want to take on submitting the,
Yeah, I don't know what's involved, but I can
it's just,
reach out to do that.
yeah, that would be.
I think it's just
fantastic.
filling out. a
Yeah,
form.
it's just filling out the
So we
form
can-
saying,
Okay.
there's probably still time to join the parade if we wanted to. I don't know if anybody was interested in that, but
It's
definitely a
fun.
table would be very I think valuable. It was very valuable to get feedback and share what we were doing last year, so I would definitely recommend. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gabriella, if you're able to fill out that form, that would be super
Absolutely.
helpful.
I
Thank
can take
you.
care of that.
Fantastic, thank you. I think those are the most pressing, in terms of things that are open now and happening, unless there's any other updates, yes.
I do have a question. Do you know when the city council is going to be voting on allowing the mobile, the thing that they discussed last night?
There is no vote.
They're not voting on it?
No.
So is that going to be happening?
The mobile syringe service
Yeah,
program.
yeah,
I actually have a meeting tomorrow with Willie and the CDC.
good,
So the
Okay.
CDC granted the licenses without speaking to the city.
right,
So
Right.
that's kind of the upset.
right,
And is the CDC said, we got a letter, and then the CDC said, Needle Point Sanctuary can do a syringe service program at these 3 locations in your city.
okay,
And we said, oh, can we talk about some alternate locations? And, so we're having those conversations tomorrow. We've been having
Okay.
those with the CDC. I've been having them anyway with the CDC since March 8th.
okay.
So I've been having it the last 2 weeks.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up because I feel like part of our committee, like we discuss
Yeah.
public health. We're looking at equity issues and it's integral that we go to where the people are, or else these programs are not going to work. So I do hope that the city does consider what the CDC is saying and follows their guidance.
And I think what you heard from the city council last night was we are happy to support harm reduction. We have no issue with syringe service programs. We're just asking to be thoughtful about where they are physically located. And if
Mhm.
it's 500 feet away, is it really a barrier? Because we talked through that. Is there like, we can't create distance to be a barrier? And I said, we're not. So we think we have some opportunities and options that are in close proximity that shouldn't result in a barrier.
Okay, just because I know people talk about concern about safety. And I know that there's a rumor that the new Penobscot County Jail may be going in where the old YMCA was located.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
So,
Actually, what I read in Bangor Daily was that that wasn't even an option.
I didn't think the footprint.
I
was
hope
big
it's not an option,
It's not.
but I have heard that as a
Well, yeah,
rumor, so,
According to, according to the newspaper,
okay,
the county, which it's Penobscot County that owns that parcel, they
Right.
bought it.
okay,
They wanted to put a jail there, they were told no.
No.
good.
So the answer is still no, they can't do
Okay.
that, so they'll do something else with it.
All right, good. Any other important business?
No, it can wait.
Okay, fantastic.
It's late.
It is.
I.
Thank
we
you,
have
everybody,
some
for
things that-
being
Yeah.
flexible. That was a lot of good information
But it
from
was
our
good.
partner, so I really appreciate everybody staying with us. So can I get a motion to adjourn if there's no new business?
Second.
Oh, I did
Or-
the motion.